Hello, my name is Tony. You know, sometimes art imitates life, and sometimes life imitates art. Someone once said imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. Someone else once said, if you continue taking a piss like that, I'm going to kick you in the balls so hard you'll be wearing them as a two-piece necklace and singing soprano with the choir eternal. On the 30th of April 1980, 6 heavily armed Arab nutcases stormed the Iranian embassy in South Kensington and took 26 innocent people as hostages. They wanted some of their scumbag criminal amigos sprung from the chokey and safe passage out of the UK for themselves. Don't know what their expectations were. Why, certainly, Abdullah. Would you like some fries and a shake to go with that? How about we bung in the crown jewels as a goodwill gesture and wave you off at Heathrow? The British government told them to kindly fuck right off. And so began the siege. By day 6, the Arab terrorists got a bit salty and killed a hostage, chucking his corpse out of the embassy, obviously thinking, that'll show those barbarian infidels we mean business. Oh dear, big mistake. The Special Air Service, SAS, a Special Forces regiment of the British Army, abseiled from the roof of the embassy, smashed in through the windows, and in a 17-minute operation blew the living crap out of the mad Arabs, killing 5 stone-cold dead. The survivor did a 27-year stretch at a Majesty's pleasure, hopefully getting gang raped nightly by a bunch of hulking cons until his arsehole was screaming for a body transplant, or vice versa. Well, that was well worth the effort, wasn't it? What a bunch of fucking idiots. And it goes without saying, serves them bloody well right. It was all over the news, on all the front pages, everyone was talking about it, people gave interviews, books were written, the die of history was cast, and the SAS became a thing, a big thing. A big media thing. 2 years later, and producer Ewan Lloyd, who previously gave us The Wild Geese and The Sea Wolves, released a movie about a terrorist incursion and hostage siege at an ambassador's residence in the UK and the SAS operation to liberate it and save the day. What's the deal on it? Well, it's this. Lewis Collins was the almost man. He was almost Ringo Starr, Pete Best's percussive replacement in the Beatles. He was almost James Bond after Roger Moore, only his audition was felt to be too aggressive. He was almost a big action movie actor signed to a 3-picture deal by Ewan Lloyd after making Who Dares Wins. 3 pictures that never got made. Things went wrong, didn't work out, never came together or fall into place. Somehow the stars didn't align. Who knows why? Bad luck, karma, shit happens, or doesn't. He made his name playing Bodie opposite Martin Shaw's Doyle in the hit 1970s espionage action TV series The Professionals. It made him a household name, gave him a platform from which to launch a career, but it never really happened for him. Which is a shame, I feel, because although he might not have been a highly talented thespian with any sort of range to speak of, he had a rough-hewn charisma and appealing manner in playing rugged action hero types, which he exploits semi-effectively in Who Dares Wins. Collins plays Captain Peter Skellin of the SAS. On a training mission in the Welsh mountains, he brutalizes and tortures 2 guest officers who only came along for the day trip. One from the US Army Rangers and one from the West German GSG-9. Doubt they gave the excursion much of a positive rating on TripAdvisor. As a result, for taking things a bit too far, he is carpeted, resigns his commission, and is dismissed. This is just a cunning ruse so that he can infiltrate terrorist organisation the People's Lobby. This bunch are masquerading as nuclear disarmament protesters, but are in fact planning a major terrorist act on British turf. When the film opens, Skellin's undercover predecessor is shot in the mouth with a crossbow bolt whilst on a CND rally in London. This means Skellin must be extra stealthy and super careful so as not to arouse suspicion. To this end, he and his contact Ryan Norman Rodway meet frequently and openly in public places, and although Skellin easily clocks that he's being followed by Mark Ryan, a People's Lobby goon, he fails to spot his crazy hitwoman partner Helga Ingrid Pitt on his case. Listen, if I was being followed by Ingrid Pitt, I think even I'd fucking notice, and I don't know anything about evasion tactics unless it involves tax. Shit. Forget I said that. He also visits his wife and child out in the open and gives her a big lingering snog. His wife, I mean, not the child. So they're immediately exposed to grave danger, and he's compromised, because Mac and Helga are positioned in a vehicle right across from them, with a camera and plainly visible to such a degree that Mr. fucking Magoo, with his head in a blacked out deep-sea diver helmet on backwards, couldn't have failed to see them. Initially, though, he picks up one of the terrorist leaders, Frankie Leith, played by Judy Davis, at a bar frequented by activist types. She's an American spoiled brat rebel with an inheritance and daddy issues. issues. Judy Davis is an Australian actress with a Shakespearean stage background who won a Best Actress BAFTA and was Oscar nominated for her role in My Brilliant Career, an ironic title considering she's chosen to be in this film. Along with Ingrid Pitt, though, she turns in one of the film's two best performances. The script and dialogue are her enemy throughout, and she looks like a feminist scarecrow styled by Prada. And when Ingrid Pitt is the second best performer in a movie, it's a telling indicator of the level the rest of the cast deliver at. Frankie is intrigued by Skellen taking him back to her place and shagging him post-haste. Why does this sort of thing never happen to me, I wonder? As he's ex-SAS, she feels his insights will be valuable to the cause and puts him on the payroll. Her partner in leadership of the People's Lobby, Rod, John Datine, suspects Skellen is a plant, and thanks to Skellen's astonishing lack of basic undercover skills, stealth and concealment, evasion and plain common sense, his suspicions are soon confirmed. It all leads to Skellen being dragged along on an assault on the US ambassador's residence during a dinner party. The terrorists are disguised as a phony American brass band. The real band are being hijacked and imprisoned in a barn somewhere. Skellen's wife and baby daughter are held hostage by Helga and Mac to ensure his cooperation, and eventually the SAS spring into action and launch an offensive operation to bust in and blow away as many of the terrorists as possible while safely liberating the hostages. By now you're probably wondering if it's any good or worth your time. My answer to the first part has to be no, not entirely, and the second, possibly not. It does have its fans, but from my end and on a purely personal level, I can sort of take it or leave it. But this may not be much help if you're thinking of giving it the old once-over. Bearing this in mind, I'm going to be a bit more specific. Positives are as follows. Performance-wise, Lewis Collins makes an okay SAS hardman. He certainly looks the part. As the lead, it's his job to carry the film, and he manages to just about do that. The cast includes some very decent character actors like Edward Woodward, who gives solid support as a police commander leading the negotiations. Kenneth Griffith is in quirky, eccentric mode as a misguided activist clergyman who has no real relevance to the narrative, apart from cheekily referencing CND leader of the time, Reverend Bruce Kent. Ingrid Pitt stands out as a hair-trigger psycho mercenary killer. Her punch-up with Skellen's wife is a gleefully vicious little set too. It ends when, in one of the film's best scenes, the SAS blow a hole through the living room wall, kill the lights and fill Helga and Mac's faces full of bullets. As mentioned previously, Judy Davis does well in the acting stakes with a Patty Hearst-alike character, even though much of the dialogue she's given is atrocious. She does her best. The rest of the supporting cast are mostly stereotypical cardboard cutout ciphers, arbitrary cliches. Noted American actors Richard Widmark and Robert Webber forge ahead gamely with their formulaic roles, giving it their best shots as US Ambassador and Commander-in-Chief of Strategic Air Command respectively. There are some moments of unintentional humour which work in the film's favour, more through luck than judgment, as I suspect they were intended to be taken seriously. The interpretive modern dance routine in the bar where Skellen meets Frankie comes complete with phallic cardboard missiles and mind-meltingly crap choreography, plastic death masks and ludicrous costumes, and is something you may not forget in a hurry, even though you wish you could. The charity rock concert in a church headlined by a dreadful mock band called Metamorphosis, hey, that's a change, raises a chuckle or two as it descends into a violent but hilarious skinheads versus disarmament protesters riot. The climax, when the SAS move in for the kill and storm the ambassador's residence, is, in all fairness, terrific. A fine cornucopia of helicopters, abseiling, concussion grenades, smoke bombs, machine gun fire, explosions, tension, bloody death, Lewis Collins snapping out of it and springing into action, all coordinated with professional skill and verve by veteran Bond stuntman Bob Simmons. Real SAS operatives are rumoured to have taken part and advised. It could almost convince you that you've seen a much better movie than you have. Almost, but not quite. Direction by Ian Sharp, who worked on The Professionals, reflects his TV show background by being pragmatic and workmanlike with little in the way of flourish or style. Roy Budd's score is an unintrusive background drone which you won't really notice. Snowdonia in Wales was used as a location for the training sequence, and I can honestly say I've never seen it looking more glorious than in this film. The scenery is breathtaking and flawlessly captured by cinematographer Phil Mayhew, who had also worked on The Professionals. William Goldman once theorized realised that if a film fails on any level, it's usually the screenwriter and the script that gets the arbitrary scapegoat treatment. He has something of a point, but that doesn't mean that sometimes it's not a valid criticism. Apparently, this is how the screenplay for Who Dares Wins came about. Novelist and TV writer George Markstein, who had worked closely with Patrick McGoohan on The Prisoner in the 60s, came up with the synopsis. This was given to author James Follett, who turned it into a novel, The Tiptoe Boys, in just 30 days. As the novel was being written, each completed chapter was sent to Reginald Rose, previous screen credits The Wild Geese and the Sea Wolves, who adapted it into a screenplay. And after all that, oddly enough, it turned out to be something of a mess. Who would have thought it? There are two protracted pseudo-political speeches debates in there, one given by Kenneth Griffith in the form of a sermon about how Jesus in the modern world would have been an anti-nuclear protester and labelled a terrorist by society. Bit of a wild presumption for a man of the cloth. Then there's a cod political argument between Richard Widmark and Judy Davis about the morality and feasible success of turning Scotland into a nuclear wasteland as a means of ridding the world of nuclear missiles. For that is what the People's Lobby are aiming for. They want the British government to launch a nuclear strike on a submarine base in the Highlands to give the people of the world a clearer idea of what a nuclear war would look like. For real, no less. In return, they'll let the dinner party hostages live, which doesn't seem like all that good a deal really. In fact, it's a bit shit. Nuke Scotland into a radioactive glass marble and 20 or so supper clubbers get to dine another day. I think not, folks. Whiskey comes from Scotland, so it's a no-brainer. Your plan is fucked. Now, I'm willing to overlook a lot in your average action movie, but the one thing I find difficult to bypass, and the main problem I have with Who Dares Wins, is it's an action movie with precious little action in its runtime. The story meanders unevenly along, with the main character tooling around here and there, making it patently obvious to everyone he's a spy with an agenda. May as well have narc tattooed on his forehead in gothic typeface. For most of the time during the hostage situation, Lewis Collins is expected to just stand around, look moody and secretive, and dispense misleading advice to the terrorists. It's only in the last 15 minutes, when he goes for a phony shit and signals to the authorities outside with a shaving mirror, that the film starts to really come to life, and the takedown of the terrorists kicks off the impressively explosive finale. As I said earlier, I can take it or leave it. Who Dares Wins was made to capitalise on real-world events, but in adapting them to a fictional framework makes some serious errors of judgment. I get that selling it in America, where it was given the stupefyingly banal title of The Final Option, was a major consideration, but I think the focus on the nuclear weapons angle and the placement of US bases on UK soil, although topical at the time, was a misstep. Homegrown terrorism in the UK, unless it involved the IRA, was practically non-existent. Nuking a country and killing millions to prove that nuking a country and killing millions is a bad thing makes no sense. And of course, no one's going to do it just to save the lives of a few dog-eared old dignitaries. Add to this the inclusion of a shady Middle Eastern character called Malik, who is providing funds to radical organisations without any defined motivation for doing so, other than to generate civil unrest for the fun of it, and the basis of the script is a shaky and unconvincing foundation at best. CND and other anti-nuclear organisations got pissed off at the time, even though the film makes it clear that the People's Lobby is a terrorist cell that has infiltrated a mostly peaceful movement and not actually a part of those more benign protest groups. As is the way of such things, there were the usual demonstrations outside of cinemas, which resulted in nothing more than free publicity for the makers. Who Dares Wins was cited as the 6th highest box office grossing movie in the UK in 1982. It cost an estimated £5 million to make, took $2 million in the States, and just over £500,000 in the UK. If you're going to do the math, it wasn't what one would term a box office success. Dumb action films can be truly great if they shift along at a pace and pack in enough smoke and mirrors and thrilling content to distract the viewer from thinking too deeply about the plot mechanics. I would quite willingly forgive a lot of its faults if it had been a more kinetic and action-packed affair, moving at a brisker clip with more crash, bang and wallop. And if it had given Lewis Collins more to do, rather than meet with his contact, stand around a lot and get beaten up. I appreciate it more as an early 80s artifact, a product of its time, rather than an essential piece of movie entertainment. It missed a lot of opportunities and could have been a good deal more than the sum of its parts. Others may disagree, seeing qualities in it that I don't, and if so, that's a good thing for them, and I'd love to hear their take on it. But for me, Who Dares Wins isn't that much of a winner. Thanks for your time and attention. I'm forever grateful for that. If you fancy hitting like or didn't like, commenting, subscribing to the channel, giving some suggestions for possible future content, don't hold back. Do your thing. Meanwhile, here's a song called...
electrically clicking. Every day without fail, every day the clock is ticking. Faces in a cloud, burning in an ocean of rapture. Places I'm not allowed, whirling in the motion capture. It's monumental, let me go gentle. Headache central. Things getting mental, transcontinental. Headache central. Taking my head apart, burning cells are nervily dying. Arrows right to the heart, every day the time is flying. Faces on a wall, beaming with the zeal of travel. Places I can't recall, threads that are real and unravel. Accidental, ride me a mental, heading central. Too compartmental, so temperamental, heading central. Brains, bolts and frames, something gets into the veins. Sun, snow and rain, perpetual motion remains. Once again to the same mistakes I'm making. Faces with a